hear you if you're talking. You're okay. I'll start anyways. I can see you started the live stream already.
Oh.
So hi, good day everyone, and welcome to today's PHP meetup. And today's event promises to be interesting and impactful. And for today's event, we have two speakers, and the two speakers will be talking in detail about test-driven development and as software developers, we should know, that is if we do not already know, that test-driven development is the best practice that should be included in our software development life cycle, as it helps us build a system with a higher code quality and also make our programs easy to maintain and refactor. So the two speakers for today, the first speaker is going to be Matthew Monday, who is a backend developer at Bincom Dev Center. And the second speaker is going to be Shedrack Demate, who is a startup technology mentor at MEST Africa. So the order of activities today is going to be in this order. Once the first speaker is done speaking, I have someone here with some information for us. So he's going to be taking over right after the first presenter. Then we have the second presenter present. So once it's done, then we have our questions and answer session. So if you have any questions during the events, you can just drop it in the chat box. So all questions will be attended to after both speakers are done with their presentation. So I'm going to be handing over to our first speaker, that is Matthew Monday. So Matthew, over to you. Matthew, are you here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My pleasure to have you all.
I can't hear you if you're saying anything.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I can't.
Okay. Okay. So today's event is going to be about test-driven development as a good practice in agile development. Bear with me. Let me share my screen, please. Look, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right. It's coming on, please. So agile development, as you know, is a kind of methodology that is being applied during software development. And we are going to be talking about test-driven development, how it applies. Now, this test-driven development is not meant for a complete beginner. If you're a software developer who is just starting, you might need some concept to be able to understand test-driven development. Such concepts include object-oriented programming, as well as procedural programming as well. But it is assumed that we have the basics of programming. Now, what just is this concept known as test-driven development? Well, test-driven development is a good programming practice that is being employed when you want to be able to write a code that can last, a code that is not prone to errors. So it's a way of you writing codes in order for you to be able to know if your code does exactly what you expect it to do. In other words, it's a way of writing test cases and also ensuring that your code meets those requirements. It also means if your code is that the code is not doing what it is intended to do. So basically in PHP, we have various ways of implementing such thing, but we are going to talk about PHP unit in this case. PHP unit is a tool we use for writing and running unit tests for PHP. As you see on my screen, it's written by Sebastian, and he is the co-founder of the PHP and the pioneer in the field as well. It is a tool set and a framework that helps you write unit tests for your PHP code. And unit tests should allow you make fewer mistakes. Well, most of us might not really get what I mean by this unit test. Unit test is actually what we use to write this test-driven development. Test-driven development is a way of you writing tests that is going to be executed to ensure that your program does exactly what it's intended to do. So you use unit test as one of the means of writing those test cases. And one we use in PHP is PHP unit. We have other one, like if you are doing integration testing or so. This unit test, it makes you, in fact, it prevents you from making mistakes, or you make fewer mistakes. How? Imagine you are working on a very big project that you've written lots of code that's span over the months for about maybe 12 months of development. And all of a sudden, after it is being pushed to production, you notice that there is actually a bug in this code. Those of you who are familiar with coding, you'll find out that you can even spend weeks, even months, if care is not taken, to try to debug that code. Why is it that case? Because you fail to write tests when you're writing this code. So if you are writing tests, it prevents you, in fact, before you move to the next step, the previous step is always accurate. And it also ensures that any mistake you make ahead, you can always fall back to where it was corrected. So you can always make correction early enough. So unit test is a very good means we use to do this. It goes is to make it easy for you to learn as well as to write, and it's as well execute quick. Now, on my screen, you can see a diagram. Programming is not just about writing code. Programming is more about getting requirements and doing some manual tests first. Then you are fixing the code. Then before you think of taking it to production. Now, if you are just more about writing code, you will end up making a lot of corrections. Now, let's talk about the first three. In fact, I'm going to ignore the first one that is clarifying requirements. Now, manual testing, fixing code, dealing with production bugs. First, what is this manual testing we're talking about? Now, just imagine that you're going to use your own eye to check these test cases. First, you use your eye to ensure that what you are writing does exactly what you intended it to do. It involves you checking that you have the right value as the input, checking that you have the right price for your shopping cart. Now, if you keep doing this thing manually, as a human, it is going to be really stressful, isn't it? Yes, it's going to be really stressful. You are prone to make mistakes and you can miss some details. And aside from that, it's going to be very slow and impractical. Now, as opposed to unit testing, it is very, very fast. As you can see this diagram on my screen. In fact, PHP unit ensures that every unit of your test or every unit of your code is being tested to ensure that it does what it's intended to do. If at any point there is a failure, you are going to see a cross check. As you can see, the third test failed, while the first two tests passed. It's going to prevent the program from running. So you have to correct this. And as a result, you have a very good code. You are able to identify this thing early enough before it is being pushed to production. Now, unit test is automated. You don't have to worry about how it executes. All you need to do is to know how to do it. So when you write a program that is testing your code before it makes you proceed further, in fact, you come to realize that you are having everything very easy. You won't want to do all those things after it has been pushed to production. Yes. Now, the example you can see on this screen tell you a simple code snippet that is a unit test, actually. Now, unit testing, like I said, you are testing every unit of your code. You can see about 5 functions here. Each of those functions is a test to a certain area of your code. The first one is assert count, assert same size, assert null, assert contains only instance of, and assert JSON. Now, each of these snippets enables you to ensure that whatever is being received as a variable into this function is accurate. Like the first one will say assert count. Now, you have an array as a second argument. You have 2 as the first argument. Now, this ensures that the array that is being received has 2 items. It does not exceed more than 2 items. It fails. You are going to have a cross check, meaning that this failed test is not acceptable. Now, you also have that of assert same size, where you take 2 arrays, you can compare between 2 arrays to ensure that they have exactly the same size. You have assert null, then you have an argument as value. Now, this argument you are receiving from assert null ensures that it is not a null value. Then we also have assert contains only instance of. It ensures that the array that is being received in the second argument does not have any item that is not the instance of products. As you can see, the first argument is a product and ensure that it's formatted in a JSON format. Now, all of this function is called using self, which means whichever class that calls this particular function must also extend, yes, the test class. From there, you can have all of these things at your own disposal. You can use them. Now, unit testing, like I said, from the previous slide, just in case, just in case at any point, any of this function fails, it prevents the rest from executing, or it will execute, but you are able to pinpoint exactly at what point the function failed, and you can correct it. Now we have more info about unit testing. Like I said, you are testing one part of your code, and you are not worried about the old bulky code. You only test one particular part before you test. You write each test cases for each part. It might look kind of burdensome, but it is very good. It's a good practice because it ensures that you don't write all your code before you begin to test if it actually does what it does. Now imagine if you are building a website for maybe an e-commerce client, or you decide that you are building this site, you refuse to test some cases. Now, in some cases where you have the price that is charging more extra, what happens if the user book a particular item? Now, the price are not even. So which means you are creating a problem on this site. There will be a lot of complaint. So when you write a test to check that this price is fixed and it is not a negative price, it does not exceed certain value, you test those things before you push to production. In fact, it's going to help you a long way. How can you install units, which is PHP units, which is one of the tool you can use for unit testing? You can do it in various ways. The first way, you can use it from your Node project. If you have Composer installed, you can use Composer. You require it, you put it in your composer.json file. Then when you require it, the moment you run this build, it's going to get it installed. You can install it manually as well using the link, the official link, PHP unit, and you can use Perl as well to install it. Now, running PHP unit, the very basic is this. You always make use of your CMD, your command prompt. First, you need to call the PHP. You specify the test class, then it executes it. As you can see, you simply can also use PHP unit.xml. That one is another good approach. If you don't want to always use command prompts, you can use XML to specify the configuration of how you want the unit test to run. This allows you to be more consistent with the options you run each time. Now, the we are having on this screen is, you can see a class.
Matthew, we can't hear you anymore. Matthew.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We lost you for a while there, and we can't see your screen anymore.
Okay. Yeah, can you see my screen now? Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, this is an example of the unit test. This, you are trying to text a particular function in the class do math test. There is add an addition function that accepts 2 arguments. The 2 arguments, you are going to add both of them together. But how do you know if this does exactly what you intended to do? Assume you add this thing and you are seeing a result of 5. It shows that it is not doing what it's expected to do. So you need to write a text, as we are doing right now. You write a text that extends the test class, and you are now calling the object that instantiates that particular class you want to do the test. In this case, we are trying to instantiate do math. This is a class in a different file. So we are trying to instantiate the object. Now, what we are doing now using a static equal is this. We want to confirm that the first value that we insert as the argument of this assert equal is exactly what will be the result when the second argument is being executed. The second argument is object.add, and you have two other options. So 2 inputs. Now, you are expecting that the addition of 1 and 2 should give you 3. So using a static equal, it's going to make sure that it's accurate. If it gives you something except 3, the test fails. Now, in that case, now, if the test fails, you are not able to go ahead with your programming. You have to go and correct to see what is the problem. So writing tests makes you discover issues. This kind of error is something I will call, it is not a syntax error. It is called something like, I think, logic error, where you intend that 1 + 2 should give you 3, but whereas your code is executing and gives you 5. That is a logic error. So unit test helps you prevent such mistake, and you're able to correct early enough before you proceed to the next. Now, when you're writing a test, you need to follow some ideas, some tips first, your test needs to be descriptive. You can see this test is very descriptive. It said do math test, which means you are telling them that this particular function or this particular test you're about to write is used to test for mathematical arithmetic. Now, in this case, you are writing a function that you name test add integers. Test add integers. Now, the name is very descriptive. You are testing for addition of integers. And you can see the actual code that does the test. First, you are instantiating an object from that class, do math, and then you are trying to check if it assert equals, meaning that if the first value you have as the argument of assert equal was the result that was obtained when this mathematical operation was done, which is object.add 1 plus 2. Now, if the result that is being obtained by adding 1 plus 2 is 5, that is going to be something that you can check at a glance, because the moment you execute your code, you can see the error that you are expected to receive 3 as a result, but you are receiving 5. So unit testing, you can see you are testing code bit by bit. Now, the second test said test add float. Now you are testing to see if the addition of 2 float numbers gives you a float number. You know the principle of arithmetic now in programming. When 2 float numbers add each other, you're expecting a float number in return. You can't expect an integer number. So now that we are trying to add 2 floats, 0.5 and 0.8, it is expected to have 1.3 as the result. Now, if at any point the result you're obtaining is 5, an integer, or perhaps even a Boolean, true or false, that is far from the truth. And this assert equals is going to run as failed test, which means you need to correct something before you proceed further. You can see you've been able to test for the addition function in your class, do math. Yes, the addition function in your class, do math. And as well, you're now able to ensure that the results you obtain fit the expectation. Now, we also have more we can learn from PHP units when we use it for unit testing. You have what you call annotations. Annotations. You can see we use annotation at. That at means it is annotation. We have annotation of maybe at arrays. We have at covers. Depending on your intended goal, you use annotation for it. Now, in this case, we have a particular class, the test class, where you're writing all your test cases. You still want to test for add integers. Now, what you've done, you've been able to now still do the same thing you did, ensuring that the result you obtain from the addition of 1 and 2 is 3. So I think other annotation, you get to know it when we proceed. Okay, now we have another kind of assert you can check. We'll be checking for assert equals, assert null. Now this is assert false. Assert false ensures that the result you're obtaining is a false Boolean value. Now you are testing for a particular class, and you want to also ensure that the result you obtain is a Boolean, either a true or a false. Yes, you can use assert false to check that. If you're expecting a false value, you use assert false. If it receives a true value, when you run the test, it shows that the test failed because the normal expectation is a 0, which is a false. Now we also have assert not null. Assert not null check that the value or the result of the expression you have in the argument gives you a value that is not null. Now you are adding a null value and 1. What should you expect? Null plus 1 should be something null or so. So you expect a null, and what you are expecting is something that is not a null, which means it's going to start to be false. So when you know each of these functions, you can always call them when you extend your text class, and you have all of them to always ensure that your test cases either run false or true before you proceed with your programming. If not, when you try to do this thing later after production, those code that you fail to test may be problematic, and you will spend time trying to trace issue you're having. We have other good practice we can use. I made mention of annotation. Annotation is using the @ symbol when you comment a line. You can see we have a commented line there. I think that's a double line comment or multi-line comment. So we have an @ data provider. Then we have a value that we receive as provider. Now this @ data provider is an annotation. What it does, it enables you iterate your test code multiple times. Yes, you are not wanting to just do one particular test and maybe try to write the code again. Some annotations like data provider ensures that you can run multiple tests for different values at the same time without writing multiple test cases. You can see data provider, we specify the particular function known as provider. And down below, we define the function as arrays, an array of arrays. Now, when we specify that this is going to be the function, we also ensure that we already write the test code that is going to execute. The test code in this case is test add with data set, where you are receiving some arguments of what data set A, B, C. Now, because you are making use of data provider, it's going to ensure that it uses each of these arrays to test against that particular function. First time, second time, and third time, depending on the number of arrays you have. We have 3 arrays in this case. You are testing for 3 arrays, A, B, and C. So you test the first test. You test for the first array, which is 2, 3, and 5, as the value of the array. Now it tests the second time, which is the value of 3, -2, and 1 as another array. And it also tests the third time, the value of -2, -3, and -5. Now, in this case, you have made about 3 test cases in just one code written. You've written one particular test function that applies 3 times, testing 3 different values. Formally, what we were doing is this: we are doing assert equal, then we insert the value, then the arguments or the receiving item, which is the expression. Now, what we are doing, we're using data provider to supply those values so that it's going to iterately execute those things without you trying to write it over and over again. So that is what we call decoupled test code using data provider. You are decoupling the code. Now we also have, okay, to conclude, unit test, so to speak, is a good practice. Yes, it's a good practice. You are able to fix some code that breaks. You don't need to go further in your development before realizing that you have some code that is problematic. And also, you avoid, there are some things you need to avoid. You need to write simple tests, so to speak, and ensure that you have a decoupled testing. A decoupled testing is something that you don't have to write many times. You are ensuring that you write one test code that tests multiple values. Now, most of you that knows Akarang, those particular platform that ensures that you write a code that executes and pass all those test cases, they make use of these test frameworks like PHP units and other test frameworks that exist depending on the programming language you are making practice, and everyone needs to adopt it at the moment. If you want to be a very good agile developer, you make use of tests when you are building your website or your next project. Always try to test your code before you push to production. I think at this point, I don't have anything much to say than to receive questions from you. Thank you very much. I think that's all for now. I would love to know if there's any question, please.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew, for the awesome presentation. I have a couple of questions here, around 6 questions, but we'll have to come back to the questions after we have Tolu pass the information he wants to pass. So we'll come back to the questions. Thank you. Okay, Tolu,
Thank
are
you.
you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the first speaker for a wonderful presentation. I'm going to be sharing my screen now to tell you a little bit about the services we render at Bincom Dev Center. For some of you that might be interested in some of our services, we are going to be sharing our screen to you just for 5 minutes. Thank you. Oh, should be.
Moya. I am the Professional Services Lead at Bincom Dev Center. Bincom Dev Center is a multi-location tech training and development center in Nigeria, and our major objective at Bincom Dev Center is to produce over 1,000 quality tech individuals every year. These people are highly employable, globally attractive, and highly sought after in the tech ecosystem. You ask why, right? Yes, tech talents are in high demand in international communities such as US, the UK, Canada, and France. This country made policies and pathways to enable immigrations for tech talent. And guess what? Average salaries of software developers are as high as £35,000 per annum, and this is at the entry level. The opportunity for tech talents are endless, both locally and internationally. This means that the tech ecosystem is one of the highest employers of labor in Nigeria. Yet, many tech companies say that they are not able to find the right tech talents that they need. This is why we started the Bincom Global Program. The program focuses on 3 major pillars, which are learn skills, gain experience, and gain exposure. The program spans between 1 to 2 years, and during this period, trainees are taken through an in-depth curriculum in their chosen tech tracks and also in development of soft skills required for them to become globally attractive in the tech ecosystem, both locally and internationally. This program helps trainees to learn tech skills, gain relevant tech experience, and also exposure to the endless possibilities and opportunities available in the tech ecosystem all over the world. Listen to some of the testimonials of our past trainees.
Yes, I had high hopes and expectations while joining Bincom Academy, and trust me, believe you me, yes, it was met beyond my expectations. I saw things I have never seen.
From network frameworks like Angular and the likes.
The program has various knowledge tracks that you can choose from. Some of the technical knowledge tracks include the data science track, which is starting with Python. We have the backend track starting with PHP, the front-end mobile app track starting with JavaScript, the DevOps infrastructure track. We have the UI UX graphics track, and also the software testing and quality assurance track. And apart from the technical and software programming knowledge tracks, we also have business knowledge tracks that are equally highly paid across the world, and some of them include the project, service, and product management track starting with agile. We have the digital marketing, performance marketing track as well. That's interesting, right? Yes. This is a highly intensive program. You need to be able to commit at least 40 hours every week to the program. You can choose from our various shifts. We have the regular shift, which is the 40 hours weekly, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays and 1 to 2 Saturdays a month. We have the night shift, the 40 hours weekly, which is 5 p.m. till late on weekdays and 1 to 2 Saturdays every month. We also have the majorly weekend shift, which is 40 hours weekly, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays, and then 4 hours every other weekdays. We also have other flexible shifts based on your availability. Yes, all you need to start are a laptop device and a passion and a hunger for IT. Wait, it gets better. We have various financing options to help you cover the cost of the program. Though the program is not free, you do not need to have money to be able to apply and be admitted to this program. The total cost of the Bincom Global Tech program over the 1 to 2 years period is 1.2 million naira. And we have one of the financing options available is the income sharing agreement, which means that the company will sponsor you through the entire program and you only start paying when you start earning income. After the program, this means that aside the skills, the experience, and the exposure, the company is also willing to invest their money on you. It doesn't get better than that. What are you waiting for? Hurry up to bincom.net/globaltech and register to launch your global tech career. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tolu. Are you done?
Yeah, thank you. That was all. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Matthew Monday, I have a couple of questions here for you already. The first question here says, does PHP unit require any special setup before installation? Matthew?
Yes. You can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
PHP units, you need to set it up. Like I said, if you want to just write, like go straight to writing test cases, then you need to install it. For my slides, I remember I showed you at a point where you can install it, but good enough. If you're making use of frameworks installed with the framework, so all you need to do is just to make use of it directly. So most of the majority of the time, you won't be using it directly. You always have it come with frameworks. So you have it installed. All you need to do is just to go to the test folder and start writing your test cases.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and the next question I have here is how does PHP units differ from other frameworks like JUnit and test engine? Like, how does it differ from these other frameworks?
Yeah, PHP units differs a lot. We have other ones like you said. We have continuous integration as well. But from the word PHP unit, what it does is unit testing. It actually tests a very smallest piece of your code, as little as the function, or as little as even the value, or let's say the property of that particular class. Maybe you have a class of human, and part of the properties you are having is the name. So you can use PHP units to only test one particular function. So it's unit testing. You can end up writing multiple test cases. But even as it looks stressful, it has advantages. Because when you have many different cases of test for each particular code snippet, like each piece of the code, it becomes easier for you to know where exactly you have one that is failing. So unlike other test frameworks, you can test as a bunch, test the code as a whole. That is not always the best practice. Let me say 5 months or even 10 months, where you have a lot of complex things together. So if you are using such approach and you already complete your development before the unit test, because you need to know where exactly that problem is coming from. The very basic code is what unit testing check.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And the next question says, can a test case contain more than one test method?
Okay. If the test case you are writing, since it's a unit test, you are only interested in writing for a particular function of a particular class or a particular property of a particular class to check if the value you're expecting is what you are receiving after the test. Now, if you want to be writing so many other cases of that particular class in just one test, it is not recommended, because remember, we call unit test. So first, when you have your code, you want to write your test, you need to break it down into pieces. You need to know where exactly, in fact, you need to know exactly which function you want to test and how important it is. What you're expecting from this particular function, you want to check if you are getting the result. If you don't do that, like I use the case of a shopping mall, you are not testing to see if the particular price, which is comprises of the tax and other things, if the price you are receiving is correct enough. You can end up overcharging the user, and there will be some user getting more, big charge the other one. And remember, you won't want to go to manual testing as an option. So you are able to check the class which is involved for that, maybe shop, then, or let me say products. Then you have a price, the particular logic is there. Now you write a test for that particular function of that particular class. The test now is going to be for that class price of the product function, so of the product class. So that test is meant for that particular function alone. So if you want to write for another function of that particular class, you need to create another test just to ensure that you are not going far from the context unit text.
Okay, thank you. The next question here says, is it possible for a single test class to belong to two different groups? That question is from me personally. I think you kind of explained it already when you talked about annotation, but I kind of missed it. My network was lagging a little bit. So is it possible for a single test class to belong to two different groups?
Okay, a single test class to belong to two different groups. Usually you should have a test, one test for one class, one test for one class. If you have, when I mean class, before you even get to the point of classes, you've known exactly those objects you have on your website. You have the product class, then you have maybe the price class, or let me just say the shopping class or something like that. So you've isolated those classes into their particular folder. When you are writing these test cases now, first you are going to create a file that is concerned with that particular class, the first class product. So to be product test, all of the test cases for that particular product class, you are writing it in that product test file, which means if you have about 5 functions in that product class, the class you specify for testing for products alone, one file, is going to be the class that you are going to use to write all those test cases for its various functions. I don't know if you get me.
Yeah, I get you. Thank you. I think I have 2 more questions. Yeah, then we're done. Okay. Do all methods inside a test class have to be annotated as at test, sorry. Do all methods inside a test class have to be annotated as at test?
Yes, I didn't bring that actually. I didn't say something about that, but it's very important. If you are annotating, you are putting as test as annotation, you don't necessarily need to start the name of the test with the keyword test. You notice in each of those methods we are having it as test, the name of the class, so the name of the test case is test product price. You always notice that you see test at the beginning of the function name. You can cancel that if you are using the at test annotation. So if you have the annotation of at test, necessarily, will I say, preparing it with the word test, because that word test is going to make the the program knows that this is the test class.
Matthew. Matthew. Yes, I can hear you. You went off for a while.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, what I'm saying is you need that annotation at test. Okay. To save you stress of always writing test as the first before the actual name of the test.
Matthew.
So if you have that
Matthew,
go
you're breaking up.
straight ahead to say products price test without writing test product price test, because in each of the function name tells you that this is that's at
Matthew.
can you hear me?
Matthew.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Though you were breaking up while answering that question, but I think we get the
Okay,
point already. Or do you want to come again? Do you want to?
Yeah, let me just be very brief about it. I said that the at test annotation helps you not to always repeat the word test before the name of the function.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So the last question I have here is why use assert same instead of assert equal when you're trying to compare two objects? Why should you use assert same instead of using assert equal when comparing two objects?
Okay. You use assert same when you are interested to know if the two arguments you are receiving has the same value, if you are comparing against both of them. If you have two arguments in the assert same function, it is expected that the first argument, when it executes, going to be the same as the second argument when it executes. I don't know if you get that. So the value of the first and the second argument should be the same. So that is the assert same, just like saying is 5 equals to 5. So you are ensuring that both of them are same. So most of the time, assert same, you will specify the value yourself. Then you now ensure that, you use it more when you are dealing with arrays, so to speak, sorry. Now, when you are using assert equal, you are checking for value in this case. Now, for example, assert same size, you check for two arrays to ensure that both of them has the same size, 5 items. Then for assert equal, the first argument, let's say it is 5. The second argument now, it's expected that when it executes that code, the result is going to be 5. So that is assert equal. You understand? So it's going to be like you saying double equals to when you are checking the if condition. That's assert equal for you. You get?
All right. Thank you very much for answering the questions to the best of your knowledge. And thank you for the awesome presentation also. I'm sure we have really gained a lot, and the presentation was impactful for most of us that are here. And like I said before the start of the event, I said we were supposed to have 2 speakers, but the second speaker was unable to make it. So we appreciate you, Matthew, for coming. And we also appreciate every other participant of the event. Thank you very much for attending the event. So